The Mitsubishi Mirage G4 has a death rate of 205 per million registered vehicle years. Let that sink in for a second. That means you're more than 5 times more likely to die in a crash driving a Mirage than the average vehicle on American roads. Not 5% more likely, 5 times more likely. Here's the kicker. This car passed every federal safety requirement. It has airbags, it has crumple zones, it meets crash standards. Mitsubishi sells it as an economical family car. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety tested it and gave it a poor rating in small overlap crashes, noting extensive intrusion into the driver's space. Translation: in a real-world crash with a tree or a pole, the structure collapses around you like a soda can. That's the problem we're tackling today. Some vehicles look safe. They're big, expensive, rugged, covered in airbags, marketed to families. But when rubber meets reality, they fail spectacularly. We're talking about structural collapses, seats breaking free during crashes, and vehicles that literally tip over in standard crash tests that sedans routinely pass. The IIHS updated its crash testing protocols in 2023 and 2024, and the results exposed something manufacturers didn't want you to see. They added a crash test dummy to the rear seat. Turns out, while automakers spent decades perfecting front seat protection to win awards and 5-star ratings, they basically ignored everyone sitting in the back. We're talking about the seats where you put your kids. The tests also got tougher in other ways. The updated side impact test now uses a heavier barrier moving faster, simulating what actually happens when a modern SUV T-bones you, not some theoretical compact car from 1995. Small overlap tests are now conducted on both sides of the vehicle, not just the driver's side. Pedestrian detection is now mandatory for top safety awards. What did we learn? That looking safe and being safe are completely different things. Some affordable small cars demolish luxury SUVs in protection. Some family haulers are death traps for anyone unfortunate enough to sit in the second row. And some vehicles that look like they could survive a nuclear war can't handle a 40 miles per hour offset crash without their structure separating like wet cardboard. The disconnect between marketing and reality has never been more stark. SUV commercials show families safely navigating mountain roads. Sedan ads emphasize advanced safety technology. But crash test labs tell a different story. One written in collapsed A-pillars, submarining seat belts, and death rate statistics that should terrify anyone shopping for a family vehicle. Big SUVs with catastrophic structural failures. These vehicles trade on their imposing presence. They're massive. They cost as much as a small house, and they're supposed to be fortresses on wheels. Their structures fold like lawn chairs. Number 19. 2023 to 2024 Chevrolet Tahoe. Chevy's flagship full-size SUV earned a poor rating, the lowest possible, in the updated moderate overlap test that includes rear seat protection. The test dummy in the second row showed a high risk of head, neck, and chest injuries. That's not moderate risk. High risk means serious injury or death is likely. Here's the detail that should terrify any parent. The second row lap belt slid off the dummy's pelvis onto the abdomen during the crash. This dramatically increases the risk of internal organ damage. The same belt that's supposed to save your child's life becomes the thing that injures them. The Tahoe also earned poor ratings for its headlights, which create excessive glare for oncoming traffic while providing inadequate illumination on curves. So you're blinding other drivers while you can't see the road. The pedestrian detection system, marginal at best. During nighttime testing, it struggled to slow down adequately when a simulated pedestrian crossed in front of the vehicle. What makes this particularly frustrating is that the Tahoe costs upwards of $55,000 before options. At that price point, buyers reasonably expect state-of-the-art safety engineering. Instead, they're getting rear seat protection that fails to meet standards achieved by sedans costing half as much. Number 18. 2023 to 2024 Ford Expedition. The Expedition is Ford's flagship full-size SUV. It weighs over 5,600 pounds. It costs $60,000 or more depending on trim. It has a 5-star NHTSA overall rating. In June 2024, The IIHS subjected it to their small overlap crash test, the one that simulates hitting a tree or a pole with the corner of your vehicle. The A-pillar, that's the structural beam that connects your roof to your dashboard, completely separated from the rocker panel. The steering column partially detached from the instrument panel. The IIHS called this the sort of result we haven't seen in years. This vehicle performed worse than 90% of all new vehicles tested. Not 90% of SUVs, 90% of everything. Ford's response? They pointed to the 5-star NHTSA rating, which is fine, except NHTSA uses different tests that don't include small overlap scenarios. The problem isn't that the Expedition fails every test. It's that in one very real-world crash type, the one where you swerve to avoid a deer and hit a tree, the structure collapses. Number 17, 2018 to 2025 Jeep Wrangler 4-door. The Wrangler is supposed to be the ultimate survival vehicle. Body-on-frame construction, military heritage, removable doors that scream ruggedness. It tips onto its side in frontal crash tests, not in some extreme off-road scenario. In a standard 40 miles per hour small overlap test that Honda Civics pass without drama. The IIHS conducted the test twice because Jeep questioned the first result. It tipped over both times. The official IIHS statement, a vehicle tipping onto its side is not an acceptable outcome for a frontal crash. The Wrangler actually protects the driver well in terms of measured injuries. It earned good ratings for the driver in most crash scenarios. The problem is the partial rollover itself creates additional injury risks that standard crash test criteria don't measure. Rollovers are especially dangerous because of ejection risk. Here's where it gets worse. Due to its removable roof design, the Wrangler lacks side curtain airbags that deploy in rollover situations. Real-world death rate data backs this up. The 4-door Wrangler has a driver death rate of 18 per million registered vehicle years. The 2-door version, 29 per million. For context, the average vehicle is 38 per million, but that average includes all the terrible vehicles on this list. Very large luxury SUVs average just 4 deaths per million. Jeep made structural changes, starting with 2022 models specifically to prevent tipping. The vehicle still tips. That tells you everything about the fundamental design challenges of building a body-on-frame convertible with solid axles and marketing it primarily as an on-road family vehicle. Rear seats are death traps. These vehicles protect the driver beautifully. Marketing teams love to talk about their 5-star ratings and top safety pick awards. Your kids in the back? Not so much. Number 16, 2022 to 2023, Subaru Crosstrek. Subaru built its entire brand identity on safety. The Crosstrek is marketed to adventure families who need all-wheel drive for their weekend camping trips. It earned poor ratings in both the updated side crash test and the rear seat moderate overlap test. Double whammy. In the side crash, which simulates a mid-size SUV T-boning you at an intersection, the IIHS noted substantial intrusion into the occupant compartment. That's engineer speak for, the door came into the cabin where your body is supposed to be. In the rear seat test, the dummy submarined beneath the lap belt, sliding forward in a way that dramatically increases abdominal injury risk. The Crosstrek's bigger sibling, the Outback, earned a good rating in the same side test. Subaru knows how to build safe structures. They just didn't do it with the Crosstrek. Number 15, 2022 to 2023 Kia Forte. The Forte earned the worst performance in the updated side crash test among all small cars tested. Poor rating across the board. The safety cage received a marginal rating, meaning the structure didn't hold up adequately. Measurements indicated poor protection for the driver's torso and pelvis. Here's the specific failure that should concern anyone shopping for affordable compact cars. The test dummy's head made hard contact with the windowsill through the side curtain airbag. The airbag deployed as designed, but it wasn't enough to prevent head contact with the metal doorframe. In a real crash with a large SUV, occupants face dramatically higher injury risks than they would in competitors like the Mazda 3, which earned a good rating in the same test. Number 14, 2022 to 2023, Nissan Sentra. Nissan markets the Sentra with something called Safety Shield 360, a suite of driver assistance technologies that sounds impressive until you realize none of it matters if the rear seat belts haven't been upgraded since 2007. The Sentra earned a poor rating for rear passenger restraints. All 5 small cars in this round of testing showed the same problem. The rear dummy submarined beneath the lap belt during frontal crashes. But here's what makes the Sentra particularly concerning. Nissan knows how to fix this. Load limiters and pretensioners in rear seat belts largely solve the submarining problem. They're just not installed in the Sentra. The technology exists, it's proven. Nissan uses it in other vehicles. They simply chose not to include it in their affordable compact sedan, presumably to save costs. Number 13, 2022 to 2023 Honda Civic. Honda's legendary reliability reputation extends to safety for the driver. The Civic consistently earns top marks in frontal, side, and roof strength tests when you're sitting in the driver's seat. Move to the back seat and the story changes dramatically. Acceptable rating for rear seat protection. That sounds reasonable until you realize it's the second worst possible rating on a 4-tier scale that goes good acceptable, marginal, poor. The rear dummy's head came dangerously close to the front seat back, and yes, the same submarining issue appeared. The redesigned 2022 Plus Civic represents Honda's latest engineering. They invested in front seat protection that earns awards. Rear passengers got an afterthought. Number 12, 2023 Toyota Corolla. The Corolla is the world's best-selling car. Toyota's reputation for building reliable, sensible vehicles makes it the default choice for millions of families. Initial IIHS testing gave it an acceptable rating for rear seat protection. Then the IIHS revised its criteria to better account for variations in rear shoulder belt position. The Corolla's rating dropped to marginal. The specific failure in a 40 miles per hour offset crash, the rear passenger's head approached the front seat back closer than any other vehicle tested in its class. We're talking about millimeters of clearance between your backseat passenger's skull and the hard plastic seatback frame. That's the difference between walking away with a headache and a traumatic brain injury. Number 11, 2023 Kia Carnival, pre-August build. You bought a minivan specifically to keep your family safe. You chose the 3-row layout so the kids would have space. You paid extra for the captain's chairs in the second row because they're more comfortable for long trips. In the updated side impact test, that captain's chair broke free from its anchors and tumbled through the cabin. Not partially detached, completely broke free. A 50-pound seat with metal frames becomes a projectile inside your vehicle with your family. Kia issued a voluntary recall and retrofitted stronger seat rails to all Carnivals built before August 2023. If you own one of these, you need to visit a dealer immediately to get the fix. The IIHS retested the updated version and confirmed the seat stays attached. But the fact that this made it to production, that thousands of families were driving around with unsecured seats, reveals how these family vehicles are tested and validated. The updated side impact test uses a 4,200-pound barrier traveling at 37 miles per hour. The original test used a 3,300-pound barrier at 31 miles per hour. That difference, simulating modern SUV weights and realistic intersection speeds, exposed a catastrophic failure that passed under the old standards. Number 10, 2023 Hyundai Sonata. Hyundai dramatically improved its safety reputation over the past decade. The Sonata is their family-focused mid-size sedan with modern styling and competitive pricing. It earned a poor rating for rear seat protection. The rear dummy submarined. The shoulder belt moved from the shoulder toward the neck during the crash, exactly where you don't want belt forces during impact. Measurements showed likely head, neck, and chest injuries for rear passengers. Number 9. 2023 Kia K5. The K5 shares a platform with the Sonata. Both vehicles failed identically in rear seat protection. Same submarining issue, same belt migration toward the neck, same poor rating. This reveals how platform sharing can propagate safety deficiencies across multiple brands and models. When engineers design a platform with inadequate rear seat protection, every vehicle built on that platform inherits the problem. The K5 and Sonata aren't outliers. They're symptoms of a broader industry pattern, where rear seat safety remains an afterthought despite decades of evidence showing the risks. Number 8. 2023 Volkswagen Jetta. German engineering, sophisticated European design, poor rating for rear seat protection. The Jetta's specific failure: the rear passenger's head came too close to the front seat back during the crash. Measurements indicated likely head, neck, and chest injuries. The Golf hatchback, built on the same platform, presumably has the same issues. Number 7. 2023 Toyota Camry. America's best-selling sedan for decades. Marginal rating for rear seat protection. The rear dummy submarined beneath the lap belt. The shoulder belt moved off the shoulder toward the neck. The Camry performs better than the poor rated vehicles in this category, which is why it earned marginal instead of poor. But better than terrible still isn't good when we're talking about your family's safety. Number 6. 2023 Nissan Altima. Marginal rating for rear seat protection. Submarining issue plus moderate risk of head and neck injuries for rear passengers. Nissan advertises something called Safety Shield 360 as standard equipment, a collection of driver assistance technologies that does nothing to improve the structural inadequacies of the rear seat belt system. Number 5. 2021 to 2025 Ford Bronco. The Bronco revival succeeded brilliantly in recreating the original's rugged aesthetic and off-road capability. It failed to earn an IIHS Top Safety Pick Award due to multiple deficiencies. Poor rating in pedestrian detection. The automatic emergency braking system struggled to detect and avoid simulated pedestrians, particularly in nighttime scenarios. Marginal rating in the updated moderate overlap test due to heightened chest injury risk for rear passengers. The standard headlights on base and heritage trims provide inadequate illumination on curves. The Bronco excels off-road, but most Broncos will spend 95% of their lives on pavement, where inadequate pedestrian detection and poor rear seat protection become relevant safety concerns. Ford marketed this vehicle aggressively to families and outdoor enthusiasts. The implication is that it's safe for transporting kids to soccer practice and friends to camping trips. The crash test data suggests otherwise. Small cars with shocking statistics. The numbers don't lie even when the marketing does. Number 4. 2014 Kia Rio. The 2011 Kia Rio had a death rate of 149 per million, among the worst ever recorded. Kia redesigned the car for 2012, and the death rate improved to 102 per million. That sounds like progress until you remember the average is 38. Even after improvements, the Rio remains more than 2.5 times as deadly as the average vehicle. The structural inadequacies of minicar design, short crumple zones, minimal space between occupants and impact zones, mean that no amount of airbags can compensate for basic physics. Minicars as a category had the highest driver death rates of any vehicle class, averaging 153 deaths per million registered vehicle years. That's not a Rio problem, it's a small car problem. But the Rio represents the worst of an already dangerous category. Number 3. 2017 Ford Fiesta. Death rate of 141 per million vehicle years, nearly 4 times the average for all vehicles. The Fiesta earned a marginal rating in the IHS small overlap test before Ford discontinued it in the US market after 2019. Here's what's particularly frustrating about vehicles like the Fiesta. Ford knows how to build small cars with good crash protection. The European market Fiesta has different structure and safety equipment because European regulations are stricter. The US market version was built to meet minimum US standards, which are demonstrably inadequate. Number 2. Chevrolet Equinox. The Equinox earned a poor rating in the updated vehicle-to-vehicle front crash prevention test, which evaluates automatic emergency braking at higher speeds with multiple target types. With a passenger car target, the system provided timely warnings and modest speed reduction. With a motorcycle target, it either failed to give a warning or gave it too late in most test scenarios. With the passenger car target at 31 miles per hour, the system slowed modestly. With the motorcycle target, it barely reduced speed at all. This isn't an academic concern. Motorcyclists are dramatically overrepresented in traffic fatalities precisely because other vehicles fail to detect them. An automatic emergency braking system that can't reliably detect motorcycles provides a false sense of security while putting riders at risk. The Equinox isn't alone in failing motorcycle detection. The Mazda CX-5, Mitsubishi Outlander, and Volkswagen Taos all earned poor ratings in the same test. But the Equinox is one of Chevrolet's best-selling vehicles, which means hundreds of thousands of drivers are operating SUVs with emergency braking systems that work adequately for cars, but fail catastrophically for two-wheeled vehicles. Number 1. 2020 Mitsubishi Mirage G4. We opened with the Mirage's death rate of 205 per million registered vehicle years, the highest of any vehicle tested by the IHS. This is why it's number 1 on our list. In the small overlap crash test, the one that simulates hitting a tree or utility pole, the IIHS noted extensive door hinge pillar and instrument panel intrusion. The test dummy showed a high risk of left lower leg injury and moderate risk to the left knee. Translation: in a real crash, your leg gets crushed between the door and the dashboard. But the Mirage passes federal safety standards. It has 6 airbags, it has electronic stability control, it's approved for sale as a safe vehicle. The disconnect is that federal standards test specific scenarios at specific speeds. They don't measure real-world death rates across millions of vehicles over years of driving. Those death rates tell the real story. The Mirage represents everything wrong with relying on minimum safety standards. It meets the legal requirements. It's dramatically more dangerous than vehicles that cost only slightly more. And it's marketed to budget-conscious buyers who are often young families. Exactly the people who can least afford the consequences of inadequate crash protection. Before you assume a vehicle is safe because it's big, expensive, or covered in Kia's Safety Shield branding, spend 10 minutes on ihh.org. Now that we've covered what to avoid, check out my video on 17 cars so reliable. You'll pass them down to your kids, because the best safety feature is a car that doesn't leave you stranded.